Welcome to Project First Line. Thank you for joining us. In this module, we will review how to recognize risks for germs to spread in healthcare. Using our knowledge about where germs live and how they are spread from those places, we'll think through a real-world scenario of germs spreading and making someone sick. We'll also discuss infection control actions that we can take to limit the spread of germs. Throughout this training and in all other Project First Line infection control training modules, the term germ refers to bacteria, fungi, or viruses that are likely to pose challenges to infection prevention and control. When we think about risk in infection control, we think about seeing the possibility that something bad might happen, that a germ could be spread and infect someone, and taking action to keep it from happening. As we explore the idea of recognizing risk for germs to spread in healthcare, it's helpful to start with where we find the germs. Where do they live? What are their reservoirs? We can then think about how they get from place to place or to other people. What are their pathways? In healthcare, we think about germ reservoirs in the human body and in the healthcare environment. Reservoirs in the human body are the skin, the gastrointestinal system or gut, the respiratory system, and blood. Reservoirs in the healthcare environment include water and wet surfaces, dry surfaces, dirt and dust, and devices. There are a few common pathways for germs to be spread from reservoirs in healthcare: by touch, when they're breathed in, through splashes and sprays to the eyes, nose, or mouth, or to broken or unhealthy skin, and through things we do as part of healthcare that bypass or break down the body's natural defenses. For instance, procedures and surgeries that require breaking a patient's skin can allow germs from the patient's skin to get into their body. Anything that we do that involves touch, whether it's touching a person or things in the environment, like blood pressure cuffs or tongue depressors, can be a risk for germs to spread. There are more pieces to the puzzle of germ spread than reservoirs and pathways. Germs also need to arrive at a new person. That person could be a patient, or you, or one of your colleagues. And in order to infect them, the germs need to get around the person's natural defenses. If the person is already sick, then their immune system could be weak and not able to fight the germs as well as a healthy person's can. If their skin is broken from having an IV inserted, for instance, germs can enter their body through that break in the skin defense. Throughout all of these elements, the germs need to survive in the environment if they're going to make someone sick. That's called being infectious. The infection control actions that you take at any of these points help keep germs from spreading and causing infection. Now we're going to use what we know about reservoirs, pathways, and how germs make people sick to discuss a scenario. I'm going to present a brief scenario in which a patient has different interactions with different healthcare workers. The outcome of the scenario is that a germ, in this case staph, has spread to the patient. We will discuss the reservoirs and pathways that could have been involved in the germ spread. First, some basics about staph. It is a common bacteria, and most of the time it doesn't cause any harm. It can, however, cause serious or fatal infections, especially in patients in healthcare. Some types of staph are resistant to antibiotics, which means that the germs have developed the ability to defeat the drugs designed to kill them. Anyone can get an infection from staph, but some groups are at higher risk than others, including people with chronic conditions and patients in healthcare. Over the next few slides, we're going to focus on how staph spreads by the touch pathway. As a reminder, these are the common reservoirs and pathways in healthcare. Staph is found on the skin and spreads easily by touch to and from skin, dry surfaces, and devices. With that in mind, we can narrow down to our pathway. The main pathway for staph is by touch. When staph causes infections, it's because a person's natural defenses have been bypassed or broken down, such as through a needle stick or wound, and staph has gotten into the body's bloodstream or tissues. But before staph can cause infection, it first has to be spread to the person, and that happens through touch. Keep this in mind as you think through how staph could have been spread to the patient in our scenario. Back to our scenario. It's a patient room and the patient is in the bed. First, a physician doing rounds will enter and conduct a brief physical exam. Next, a nurse will enter to check the patient's vitals and ask a few questions about how they are feeling. Then, an EVS technician will enter to do the daily cleaning of the room, which includes greeting the patient, cleaning and disinfecting high-touch surfaces, cleaning the bathroom, and emptying the trash. At some point, staph has been spread to the patient. Can you think of different reservoirs and pathways for staph to have been spread in this scenario? Think broadly as you recognize the possible risks and jot them down in your participant booklet. Few risks for germ spread based on reservoirs and pathways in this scenario could be that the nurse has staph on their hand, which spreads to the patient when taking their pulse, or that there is staph on the door handle, which spreads to the EVS technician's hand when they enter the room to clean it. It's possible that the last patient the physician saw was colonized with staph and that germs spread to the physician's clothes. Or a device like a stethoscope that the nurse used to check the patient's vital signs is being used on many patients and has staph growing on it. Now that we've talked through reservoirs and pathways for this scenario, let's go one step further. What infection control actions would help stop staph from spreading in these situations? A few possibilities are listed on this slide. We've covered a substantial amount of information today, so let's take a moment to revisit some key highlights from today's training. Germs are found in certain places called reservoirs and need a pathway to spread to other places in people. Things we do in healthcare can be pathways for germs to be carried from one reservoir to another or into spaces that are not supposed to have any germs. When you understand where germs live and how they might be moved from one place to another or to people, you can recognize the risk for it to happen. Everyone, no matter your training or role, can recognize an infection control risk. When you recognize risks for germs to spread, you can choose the right infection control actions to keep it from happening, protecting your patients and yourself. Thank you for your time and attention today. I hope that you can take these ideas and apply them at work. Even though we covered a lot today, there is still much more to learn. You can keep exploring these topics on your own using the resources in this module. Project Firstline has a suite of products to help you learn more about how to recognize infection risks at work, where germs live in healthcare, and how germs spread. You can also follow Project Firstline on social media.